That's the thing.
I'm
Like
just going to do a
last,
quick audio check for those that are
last
on
meeting.
Zoom. I see Stacy from Rogan. Can you say hello real quick?
Hi,
There we go. We can hear you. Stacy, you're representing Roldan. Can you give me your last name just for the minute so that we have it accurate?
Reynolds, Reynolds.
Great. Thank you so much, Stacy. And then Sabina, can you just do a quick audio check on you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, good evening. You're coming in clear. Thank you.
All right.
Andrea, you're on.
I hope. Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
Was Richard?
Yeah, exactly. If I'm going to do it.
This is Richard Lavin. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Perfect.
great. You're coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, can you do a quick test? I don't think she's on. Okay.
All right.
Stacy or Sabina, if you're going to be giving the presentation, it's your time to do it.
Oh, okay. Are you guys going to be pulling up the presentation? Oh, perfect. Okay. So good evening, everybody. This is Sabina from Wildan. I'm on the call with Stacy Reynolds. And today we're going to be providing a couple of updates for the Antique Streetlights Assessment District. I'd like to ask you all to hold questions until the very end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so today's presentation will be providing an update to the budget and assessment calculation with the new loan amounts. We'll be discussing the requirements and the voting process to form the assessment district, as well as talking about the annual maximum assessment rate increase, the CPI. Next slide, please. Okay, so with the rehabilitation renovation loan assumptions, there's some updates on the project costs. So these have been categorized into low end and high end costs. And on the low end cost, this is all new poles with conduit and parkway, which will cost approximately $3.6 million. And then on the high end, refurbishing the poles with conduit and streets, so this will be approximately $3.9 million. And the city already has an existing $1.6 million of funding available. So this results in a loan amount on the low end of $1.9 million, and then a loan amount on the high end of $2.2 million. So the next couple of slides are going to show what the budget would look like with the loan amount over 20 or 30 years with an interest rate of 1.513%. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we're going to be comparing the low end cost loan over 20 versus 30 years. So the table on the left is our 20-year loan, and the table on the right is our 30-year loan. And something to note is the only difference between these two tables is our rehabilitation and renovation loan items. So everything else on the budget remains the same, except for the loan amounts. So you can see our maximum assessment rate per EBU for the loan over 20 years is $482.41. And then for the loan over 30 years, our maximum assessment rate per EBU is $382.43. And this is for the low end loan cost. Next slide, please. Okay, so looking at our high end cost, again, we have our 20-year loan on the left side and our 30-year loan on the right side. And the only thing that changes between these two budgets is our loan line item. And so you'll see that the high end cost, our loan over 20 years results in a maximum assessment rate per EBU of $538.38. And then the loan over 30 years on the high end cost results in a maximum assessment rate of $422.46 per EBU. Next slide, please. Okay, and then this is a scenario that shows what the assessment rate would be if the city pays half of the high-end loan versus if the city pays the loan in full. So on the left side, you have the loan over 20 years if the city pays half, resulting in a maximum assessment rate of $334.81 per EBU. And on the right side, you see the loan has completely disappeared to zero because this would be the scenario if the city pays the full construction cost, resulting in a maximum assessment rate of $131.25 per EBU. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we just have tables summarizing the maximum assessment rates, and these are taken from the budgets on the previous slides. Next slide, please. Okay, and we'll quickly go over the voting process. So the voting process for forming the assessment district consists of public outreach efforts to inform property owners of the assessment, to prepare and mail the notices and ballots to property owners, and lastly, just to hold a public hearing where the ballots will be tabulated. And something to note is that only the ballots received are counted at the public hearing, And the district would be established if 50% of the ballots received are in favor of the assessment. So as long as the majority does not say no, it would pass. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know there's been some questions on this. So the annual increase, the CPI, the maximum assessment rate may increase annually by the Consumer Price Index. And so the annual increase may not exceed a percentage to be determined by the city to be voted on by the property owners on a ballot. So for example, for Glendora's existing streetlight maintenance district, the maximum assessment rate is increased by the percentage change between the March to March CPI. So there is no cap, there's no maximum. Whereas for the existing landscape maintenance district that Glendora has that we administer, there's a cap at 5%. So the rate for that district increases by either the percentage change in CPI or 5%, whichever one of those two is less. So for the antique streetlights, the city can determine what that maximum percentage increase would be. And then the property owners would vote on that on the ballot. And so really this is just so, it kind of enables the district to keep with the current increases in costs like labor, materials, and things like that. So that's why the rates are increased by the CPI each year. Next slide, please. Anybody have any questions or comments, anything that they would like to add?
So I would like to just hold on for a second. Let's go ahead and give it to the public first. I don't know, Zoom or live, if there's any questions from the public.
Yep, there's no members of the public that are in attendance at this point via Zoom.
Seeing no hands raised as well here live. We'll go ahead and bring into the panel. Any questions from the panel, please go ahead.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the scenario where the city pays the full construction costs. There's still, I mean, it's not huge assessment, but there's still a considerable assessment there. That's just maintenance costs. So what is that $131?
There are a couple of things.
Sorry, Sabina, did you hear that? Were you
Yeah.
able to hear the question? Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure that those that are in attendance via Zoom can listen and hear the questions. Sorry, so Moises is gonna address that.
Sabina can answer.
Sabina, do you want to go ahead and take that answer?
Yes, would you like to go back to this slide that shows that budget?
One more, this one. Is that right?
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so your question is how is this maximum assessment rate per EBU $131 even though there's no loan?
Sure.
What does that entail? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's costs to maintain the district. So like the energy costs, for example, the direct costs, first line item, and then there's also like administration costs. So the city costs, and then Wildan, our services, and the county has a fee. And there's also incidentals. So like collecting for reserves and the streetlight capital, and just and the levy adjustment is the last line item. So there's other costs. So basically just, what it would cost to maintain the streetlights on their own.
So if you look on the first line item, there's $28,000 fee. That's basically to pay to keep the lights on. That's power that we have to pay at Edison to maintain the system. The administration portion of it, that Sabina described, is annually we have to prepare reports and present those publicly for the city council to reaffirm. Basically, these are the costs that we're going to expect and anticipate over the course of the next year. As a result, that's how we calculate the assessment. The incidental expenses are, sometimes things happen, things break, people bump in or crash into lights. We create an operational a reserve so that we can go out and fix it as quickly as possible and replace a street light. So there's a mechanism for ongoing funding terms for the energy costs related to it, capital reserve for it as well, and then the administration portion of it, which we have to report on annually.
So they're anticipating $28,000 a year for electricity, or
That's right.
even with modern LED and everything? Okay. And do we, this is probably a staff question, but how many bids do we have in?
We received one bid.
Okay, because I feel like, I mean, I used to work in construction. That feels like I don't want to do this job. I'm scared of it. I'm going to quote you a really high price kind of price. I talked to people from the Historical Society earlier today. They were very concerned whether the appropriate people have been reached out to. You know, they gave me at least 3 names of firms in the LA County that, you know, specialize in restoration and whatnot. I share the concerns that we don't have a good bid at hand. That 3.9 is definitely really exorbitant. I would like to start there as well, and pause this process until we have more than one bid. That's not a competitive process at all. That's not okay. I mean, even as someone in this district who's wanted this for 20 years, I'm not sure I would vote yes, knowing that was only one bid came in and it was so high. I mean, so if I can't believe in it, I can't ask other people to believe in it. So I think that's something we definitely need to address. My final thing is city paying the full construction cost even on the table? I mean, of course, that's lovely. That would make our job a lot easier as a committee, but is that even on the table?
I think the city council will consider whatever recommendation the panel comes.
Okay.
Whether or not the council chooses to do that, that's a completely different.
And that was a request we made of Will Van before we got the actual bid in for them to give us the cost with the city paying it, but that was money. It was anticipated being 700,000.
It was intended to give you kind of the range of options of what cost would.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's good to know that no matter what, 131 a year or whatever is on the table. So that is useful information.
Yeah, I would comment and thank Roland for putting this together. This gives us a much better view of what the potential low end and high end is going to be, which we've asked us now for quite some time. I do share his concern as well, that obviously we have one bid in there. It's a lot higher than we anticipated going in, 65% part of it. And I would say this as a panel, what we can do, and we can talk a little bit about this when we get to the next topic here, is that could be a recommendation that we obviously can follow the township. That this, in our opinion, needs probably some additional vetting as it relates to the bids that we have. That is completely up to the panel to do so. So I would recommend for us to then keep that in mind as we start to get our cost of it.
I mean, the $1 million difference between the city engineer's estimate that was supposed to be conservative. So I agree with Ian. That's kind of a, you know, CYA number for whoever bid this, but we definitely need to get more than one bid.
Any other questions as it relates to what we talked about today for Roland or right now, we should say that today, the top of the tents. All right. Oh,
Before we move on, I'd like to share a little bit of information on the bidding process, how many firms actually pulled down the documents, and how many ultimately responded.
So we did put that a bit a second time, and we gave a full bid period. We did reach out to some of these other street lighting companies. 6 prime contractors downloaded the bid, the documents, and 2 subcontractors downloaded the documents, a total of 8 contractors. At all of those, 1 submitted a bid. That's kind of closing.
When we looked at the bid, I'm lying to you. I said that we were also kind of surprised where the number was, a little higher than what we had anticipated it to be. When we looked at the bid, for the most part, the increases in materials are where the cost increases are. There's a significant difference between what we originally estimated and what was ultimately back to us.
Ask another question.
It's too up to the show, but I'm just moderating.
I know other districts in town are more in line of like $40–50 or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the letter, you guys see a copy of the letter?
Which one?
Well, the second one. The second one. I mean, what Ian's saying, I mean, I don't know where this guy gets this information, so I'm not gonna, you know, take it 100%.
But everybody's hearing that.
Exactly. That's the point. The perception is that 8,000 people in Glendora paid $42 a year.
So what you're saying, there was a letter that was sent to all of the
Yes,
commi-
to
the-
all the. people
ad hoc
in
numbers.
the district.
No, all residents.
All residents in the district.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, even more.
Yeah.
And so you sit there and you see, okay, 42 versus, I mean, we're expected, if the city covers all the construction costs, to pay 3 times that amount. So much, sorry, I
Yeah,
can't
no.
go over.
It's all good. We're gonna have to explain that. So
We need to, yeah, we need to explain that. Like why? Because I would think that, okay, the street, it should pencil out the same. Why is it $42 versus 131? It's the same thing. You crash in that light pole or even one in Glendora Avenue. How does that get calculated? Is it even accurate?
There are two completely different light systems. It's some lights in the regular street light lamps, they're just attached to utility poles. Some of them are like concrete based poles, so they're completely different light systems, different materials. And all that, I'm sure will then include in their calculation for maintenance.
So I'm interested in, I think it's really interesting to hear that city pays for it, right? I mean, that's just kind of think through that, and then we don't have to worry about it for a minute. So then when I looked at the energy cost, is that, where does that fall if we deduct it down to for a light pole? Is that in the same framework? Or, I mean, obviously, the way I'm looking at it, there's probably more light pole, more electricity use. I get that part. But isn't in line with District 1 for the lighting. We have one other district that I do believe was $45. I think somebody told me that at one point in these meetings for, like, that was what it was per year. When you kind of put, apples to apples, are we getting the same electricity pricing? Does that make sense? For light pole or for light pole, essentially? That's kind of what
Sabina, did you get that question? Or Stacy? There's a question related to other lighting districts and comparing the lighting energy costs between this antique street light district and the other lighting districts that are already in existence.
There are different types of lights that are going in. These are antique lights. So the cost is a little different than a regular street light. Plus the street light district that they're talking about is covering a lot more properties. So we can do a pro rata and tell you how many lights are actually being paid in one district and show a comparison that way that we can share with everyone. But right now we're talking about 305 or 303 parcels that are going to be benefiting from these antique street lights and only that area. And based on that type of light, that's how we came up with the street light maintenance energy cost. And might be even higher than that. I mean, this is just an estimate of the general norms on how much an antique street light might cost per pole. So that's the only thing this is just the actual cost or estimate cost of what that type of light would cost for energy.
So
and like I said, we can provide a comparison between the regular district and this district to show you that it's probably evens out just based on the number of poles that are going in for this area versus the number of poles that are in the other streetlight district that's paying a lower cost. It'd probably be easier to show it in a diagram so everybody can see that it's actually being fairly distributed. But I don't have that chart for you guys to look at today, but we can provide it.
All right. So just to take that back, because we're asking what's the difference, how do we explain it? I think it makes sense if there's a lot more properties that this cost is being divided to, less poles, more properties. I get that. The only thing I don't get, and I want to make sure we're very clear on, is the electricity use has nothing to do with like the pole being antique or not, but everything with the light bulb in it. And I thought what we're doing is it's going to be LED. So in my opinion, that part should not necessarily be a lever or variable that needs to be accounted for. However, I do understand and I do agree that less light poles, more properties. I get it. I mean, that makes sense. I'm not saying that 132 is crazy. Let's say sitting days, for example, but it is good to have that data so we can explain it. Because again, to our point earlier, where we started many moons ago now, is how do we explain some of these things and how do we bring knowledge and transparency to people? Because if we don't, then you get people voting against us and people believing these letters that are going around because this gentleman pulled. It's $42. That's horrible. And this is under 30. I'm just saying something. And if we have that data to arm ourselves with, depending on where we're going to go, the council goes forward and our FAQ sheets, that's going to be meaningful. So yes, I would love to get that, but I want to make sure that the electricity being used is light bulb to light bulb, the same LED versus LED, pole or not pole or concrete poles, and that should matter. That part of the construction. So just be noted.
We can go back and scrutinize
Yep.
that.
But I think beyond that, it's a great explanation.
I do think it's roughly 66 cents a night per lamppost. I think maybe that kind of number is less scary. I mean, that's 1.5 to 2 kilowatts. So I don't know, that maybe is something we need to consider that's more digestible.
You love the way your mind works. So there you go. Lowest common denominator makes sense. Get it started there.
66 cents. Yes.
Fair questions, and I think good question. Thank you all. Anything else?
I have one thing to say.
Yes.
From talking to my neighbors and my friends that are in this construction industry where they dig up streets and build curbs and lights and stuff. I've been told that the way the bid went out was completely wrong. Where you put one big thing out there where you have an electrician, you have landscape, you have asphalt, you have curb, you have trenchers, you have all these different departments or abilities. And you put one quote out there. And that might be why we only got one answer back, because and maybe why the price is so high is because there's not a lot of one people that could do all that stuff. So maybe it should have been split up to an electrician, an antique light expert, an asphalt guy, a trencher, a curb builder, you know, all these different things. I know we're pretty late in the game, and I'm not opposed to kicking this can down the road even further to get this done correctly. But is it possible that this quote could be put out in a manner where you get 5 electricians and you get 5 road builders, and you get 5 trenchers, and you know, however it's split up? Is it possible that it could be put out again? You know, we're in no hurry. We have no lights. We're in the dark. So if it's another year, yeah, it's been a long time. So if it's another year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it takes to do it right. I've been told that you're never going to get it right when you just throw it out there and say, fix the lights. We got one guy and the price is twice as much what everybody thought. I got to go back to everybody I talked to and now go, I know you were okay with 100. And when you say 200, they go, maybe, and you go 300, that's when they start going, whoa, why? And now 400, 500, they're going to say no. So my thought is there a way that we could restructure the quote package? That maybe we get multiple bidders for each aspect of the job?
Does the city have capacity to function as the big one? Yeah, exactly.
I will say that when we issue bids for projects,
Yeah,
the way we issued this bid is the way we issue everything.
that's not a good argument.
Similar to a home builder, there isn't one prime contractor that does electrical, plumbing, mechanical, wood building, drywall, lighting. It's a prime with several subcontractors.
I'll tell you, there is one. It's the owner of the house that he's building his own house.
That's true.
Okay, so maybe you need to approach that one.
But generally speaking, when we put out projects, we put out the entirety of the project, we
Right.
put out the specs for that bid, and generally speaking, we get a prime with subcontractors that partner together to bid that particular package. In this instance, as Alexis pointed out, we had several primes that pulled down the bid package. There are also subcontractors that pulled the bid package. Ultimately, there was only one selected firm or one identified firm that had that whole package that was submitted to us.
I'm forgetting the exact terminology, but was the bid put out in a way where like that is the final price and they have to make it work? Or is it one of those things where they can pull up all kinds of change orders or keep racking up higher fees? Well, you didn't mention, you know, and then some weird little detail and then they try to charge more, which is
Well, no,
often a
because
problem.
the quotes, they have like a $250,000 or more in there for incidentals.
Yeah.
If something happens, if we break this, which doesn't even really need to be in that because that would be the responsibility of the city if something got broke.
Yeah, but like
So
tutor
these people are quoting this job at $1 million more than it needs to be just to cover their ass.
Oh, I know, but you get like with Metro, Cheater Salip, I think they had to change their name because they did this so much, but they come in with low bids and then rack up so many change orders. That's where they make all their profit. So of course, I mean, these numbers are already frightening. I don't want it to get worse.
Will get higher.
So,
Yeah.
so that all comes down to the contract, that's part of the engineering work that goes into it. So I know you guys saw the drawings earlier. That's just part of the bid package. There's a whole set of specifications that come with it, and that's how we specify how each bid item gets paid, what it includes. So typically, like trenching conduit, it includes removal and restoration of all, cover above it. That means restoring the landscape that is there. Some people might have some different kind of plans. You have to restore that if they disturb that. So that's part of the whole package. It includes, it specifies what payment for each line item includes. Change orders can happen if there's an unforeseen condition. Most of the time that's when we're digging underground. But for the most part, we stick to the bid schedule and to the payment plans and the specifications.
And do I see this correctly that doing the conduit in the street came out more expensive than doing it? Okay, that's odd. But that's from that particular contractor.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of your point. Like, I'm just gonna throw a number out there and then let's go. I don't know how realistic.
I know what I
I'm not
would do.
gonna talk about things I don't know, but that way, and just feel.
I had a conversation with a prospective bidder that ultimately did not respond, and the number they threw out at me was about $3.5 million. That's what they had penciled it back. Ultimately, they chose not to pursue the package. So I don't think it's too far off from what the market is. It just happens to be far higher than what we originally anticipated.
And Esther, I know you had your hand eventually. So, yeah. Please.
Oh, it was just a question because for the first bid process, we didn't have anyone that bid. And so we reopened the bid a second time. And then we just had to come on. It sounded like on the first process, there was one or two that were considering submitting.
Yeah, that contractor that ran at a time.
And that's, he came in.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that whole no.
I was just wondering if maybe the second time round of but more in notice whether or not the time frame to put in this bid was the same, or maybe was another problem cited as to why we need to see funded the second time round.
I mean, they had a longer bid period the second time. There was definitely more prime bidders that would have the plan. Again, it comes down to what the market is for other projects as well. I know last time I explained that Caltrans has this mega project statewide installed conduit, and that's keeping the electrical contractors pretty busy. So they're all being fed from the state. They might not want. Another thing that contractors do is if they're really busy, they just charge higher because if they win it, great. If they don't, oh well, they have enough work. So when all these contractors are really busy, this is part of the effect for smaller projects, smaller cities.
What I would add is we also did reach out to all of the folks that downloaded the documents from the first bid process and kind of touch base with them and ask them what was going on. This is where we learned about this Caltrans project. We also reached out to other contractors and encouraged them to apply so that we broaden the pool of interested parties. Ultimately, who downloaded and who bid is what it is.
So I gather from this particular topic that the majority is obviously the concept about the level where this district comes in. I think again, we can take that, in our recommendations that we give to the council, and I don't see a reason why we can't recommend to take a look at this. Now, if it happens or not, that's up to council. I think we need to be fair recommended. I will say this, and I think between all of us, I'm just going to roughly estimate, probably talk to 15% of the homeowners. 315 will probably talk like 35, 40 maybe between the street, what we did at the walk, and then obviously our individual reach out. And I think everybody kind of said, well, being 100 and 300 for people, that's 300 for we thought people come in. And I would say at 300, we had certainly some yeses, but it was a little bit more like, that's pretty high. There's a lot of passion around this, I will tell you that much. I do think that I mean, some of the numbers I'm seeing here are somewhat concerning to me, where I would say we're starting losing some attention. So we need to think through that, and as we put our formulated recommendation, which is really a bridge to our next topic as well, we're gonna have to put some thoughts in, on what we're gonna have. Council advice. So just think that's fair. I just wanted to make that statement about this topic, unless there's anything else in the city that might like that. Is that fair, panel? Okay. So, unless Esther. Oh. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic. If that's okay.
I just have one question. Was there a timeline with the bid, like the time that we'd like to get it done, like a time frame? Like any of you got, like, how long is it to get it all done and complete?
Project.
Yes, the project done is. I don't think I've ever.
There's a we put working days for each project. Can't remember what we put for this project. Somewhere between 40 to 60 days. I really can't remember off the top of my head.
60 days.
I
Like 60 days to get the whole thing done.
Working days.
60 working days to get this whole project done.
I really can't remember off the top of my head.
I know, but
That's 2 months. That'd be great.
I don't
That's why I don't think we've ever.
clarify.
The construction time period, I think is what
I'm talking about
Alexis is referring to. So, 60.
Like
working
start the
days.
project, finish the project.
Yes.
In 2 months?
60 working days.
60 working days.
60 working days. 60 working days.
Might be.
That's kind of short to do something this big.
I don't know. That's what I said.
It just sounds like, you know, you
They could do
gotta.
that.
That's right. Maybe that's why we didn't get
that much.
I mean, why not a year? What's the hurry? I mean, my other question was, is it possible to go backwards to say, for $100 a year, it's gonna take 5 years to get this project done. Are you in? Yes. You know what I mean? Instead of saying you gotta do it in 60 working days, what if we just took the money that we have, the 1.6? Is it possible to put this on a ballot somehow to say, if we have the 1.6, we start it wherever the plug is, somewhere near City Hall, I would assume, and work your way out until you're out of money and stop. I've had this question by many of my friends, like, why don't you just take the money you got and stop, and people will see half the lights are on. And maybe
That would
3-4
then
years
be its
from
own
now.
district. That would
Yes.
then have to
So
be its own district.
phasing of the project, of the construction of the project is possible. And it's possible that the panel could recommend that we just build one.
Phase 1.
Yes.
Yeah, with the money we have.
The challenge is that those folks that are within the boundaries of where that construction occurs would then have to approve an assessment district. That's solely based on the number of parcels that would benefit from that.
Right.
So the numbers may not be that far off, it may be more, I don't know.
But if we spend the 1.6 million first, then nobody's paying anything. The grant in the city is zero.
But not everybody that would expect to have a light turned on would have that light turned on.
No, but if they go in, you know, acknowledging that, yeah, my lights, I'm at the end of Wabash, I'm the last light on Wabash. So I'm last, and I understand if this happens, right?
Well,
I'm the last guy that's gonna get his light turned on, but I'm willing to wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
That's the other question. What segment would you build?
Right.
Well, if you started wherever the plug is, right, and you still, well, like,
let me just bring this back, because I think it's a valid point. I do think, again, let me just kind of refer back to recommendations that we'll make. I do think, as I recall, we talked about this before, and I think what you're telling us is, if we only do Glendora Avenue, because I think at one point we said, well, let's just do Glendora Avenue.
Wait, you live on Glendora Avenue?
No.
There's so that. So it's cool with that. So with the no, but I think we talked about it jokingly.
Yeah.
I think we tried Glendora Avenue.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Because it's the main spur through and all that kind of good stuff. But I think what will happen is if we do have a special light district, call it 2, and then you have 3 and 4, you have to build onto it as you go out. Those are going to be at the 300, 400 level also, because again, we just talked about how many parcels to how many lights, and the cost is not significantly different, and the cost range construction. You know, we're getting.
Yeah, I would. And
that's
my question
kind of
was
like here.
purely curious as how long the whole thing would take.
Yeah,
That's it. And if that, I think the quicker the better.
I
For
think 60
safety
days, I know.
and historical perspective.
If your question was how long this whole process is gonna take,
Well, just like start the project, finish the project. That's it.
First shovel on the ground.
Like we're doing the shovel on February 1st. When is it gonna get done?
Like,
Like, okay, well, so yeah, so it might be that. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Cause I think it shouldn't take that long if they got to it, but I don't know. That's just,
I don't know.
that was my simple question.
it feels to me like, things didn't go as quickly in the outside world as we kind of had hoped. And also with most economists thinking we're gonna have a recession next year, I wonder whether the timing is just not good. I mean, obviously that's being psychic. But it's the fact that we only have one bid, I still find disconcerting. Is there a way to delay this whole process so that we can get more bids? And I mean, if I have to directly contact people and say, hey, please bid, I mean, I'm willing to do that. But I don't want to go to council with something half baked or like, okay, we only have one bid, it's super high. You know, it's 3 times the funding we have almost or whatever. It feels messy. Can we postpone this and try to get more bids somehow?
in terms of receiving bids, the method to do that was we have to reject this bid, start a new advertisement, brand new, another 4-week bid period, and then we wait, we reach out to contractors again. And then at 10 a.m. that Thursday that we designate, then we'll open up whatever bids we receive. If this contractor doesn't like that, he might just pull out, or he might adjust his price. We don't know. We might get more bids. That'd be great, but we're not just gonna receive more bids without rejecting this.
I mean, the timing isn't great, we all know that, but I mean, it is what it is. So that's, I think Richard emailed and said, maybe this isn't the best.
Oh, that's the question I was gonna ask you later, but yeah, I mean, I think that.
That would essentially be correct. That would be your, if that is what the panel chooses to recommend, that is what ultimately will be presented.
So the grant, how long do we have the grant for?
We don't have a deadline.
Long time. Okay, so that's good. That's
We,
good.
our only obligation is to produce a report whenever the project is completed.
So I think we have the power to slow play it if that's what we want to do, or recommend to the council. They can kind of look and see what they want to do.
So it seems like it's up to us to recommend if we wanted to agree to do it in parcels. Maybe you do 100 levels or not 100.
I'll be honest, the only challenge is we've gone pretty far down.
Why not?
Well, but I don't know if it is, because now we're going into a different direction where we don't have any numbers at all. Like what we looked at is the whole project, and Walden has basically spec that out for us on what's the high end, what's the low end. If we go street by street, I don't know where that comes in, and it might actually come in at the same. So at 300 for this street, at 300 for that street, it's still going to be the $300 that we're going to be looking at. So it might not make a big difference. However, I do think that one bid is complete a challenge. So how do we recommend, or how would you like to recommend to the city council that maybe we open it back up? That's up to us.
I always thought they had to have 3 bids.
But if you want to go,
because I mean, it's almost like a monopoly if you only have one. You have nothing to compare it to. I always thought you had to have 3 bids.
We always have the option to reject it if we get one bid.
Yeah, but you can actually get one bid and if it's good, go with it. You don't have to have competitive bids.
Well, we did the competitive bid process, so everybody's had a chance to review it. So you don't need to have 3 bids in hand to get the competitive bid process.
Okay.
It's a little different for some of these projects versus like if I went to a store and bought, if I needed a new computer, I would need to get full 3 bids from Best Buy or Circuit City.
Because your wife requires it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like
But for these services,
for like municipalities.
Yes.
So
Yeah, now
that's learning.
is usually.
Right, it's a little bit different. The process, we solicited the market competition.
And so you put it out there and it's not the city's fault that only one person did.
That's right.
Okay, I understand.
So
and nobody accepted it. I mean, it's not like, hey, you're in. It's like this is just a number.
Just a bid.
Yeah, we haven't accepted that bid.
So we can recommend that too.
So this interest rate is quite nice, though.
Yeah.
Is that at risk? Is that going to change if we don't? Yes, again.
Every homeowner.
I'll defer to you. I should know what the most current.
Oh, the interest rate?
Yeah.
1.5. Everybody that votes yes gets 1.5 remortgage.
I think that's motivated. Yeah.
So you did interest rate in one of your slides?
Yeah, I believe it was near the beginning.
It's the one that says rehabilitation and renovation loan assumption.
1.5.
Right
Yeah.
there.
That stays the same. It stays the same. That's the loan, interest rate for the loan. It doesn't change.
Wow.
Okay, that's a conventional fix.
I mean, I think we emphasize 66 cents a light and 1.5% interest. But let's hopefully let's try to get a better bid. But yes.
I will allow a public question as well.
So I can't read the screen out of the paper.
Yeah.
So we just did, how much would it be a year for like? How much is it per, you know, we just did, how much per year?
He's a community.
What?
No, he's actually.
Yeah, per house.
We don't have, that's the data that.
No,
Pro. Doing it. Yeah. Yeah, he puts safety.
We're saying $300, whatever we see.
Should be.
Yeah, you get it later on. Per house, you get it there.
Per property.
Yeah, the hospital, they, yes, like, whether it's $182 going a year. That's the amount that they're paying, the actual loan for construction of the project, plus the ongoing maintenance annually. And
Yeah. So that each house is paying 400 a year. For 10 years. Yes.
And then after that, they'll just go
Yeah, so we're looking at roughly $1.20. I mean, that's not that bad.
No,
I would pay that.
I mean, people pay, people pay.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. And just
So-
that big of a deal. So is, like, what kind of efforts are we making to campaign for this thing?
So
Like,
let me,
could we do a huge fundraiser? Do we have an event?
Just talked about that last.
hey, hold on for a second, because now we're losing a little bit of control here, because that is actually, no, so let me just pause.
I don't need to.
It's a perfect question, because that's exactly what we're talking about next. So that's why I wanted to pause, so we can, is that good with everybody? Can we close this topic off? And I get it. I think the whole bit part of it is, we need to figure that out. That needs to be something else. So I think that's in the recommendation. And I stand corrected, the public outreach is actually item number 3 on the agenda. You should have that in front of you now as well. But let's go to item number 2, which is determine the manner in which ad hoc panel reports and recommendations will be prepared. And this will be presented to Mr. Escobar. So let's just go ahead and go there, and then we'll go to public outreach. We'll talk a little bit more about some thoughts we might have or might not have. Go ahead, Mr. Escobar. Take it away.
Thank you, Captain. So this is a continuation of our discussion last week where I kind of set up the guidelines for us. Can I have the next slide? Okay. So the city staff will prepare the cover sheet of the city council report. The panel will prepare the report and presentation. The reports should include the panel's opinion of the resident support for the creation of an streetlight maintenance assessment district. And we had originally requested a draft by December 31st, but we will end up extending that deadline.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
The draft. We changed it to the 20.
Well, let's, Ms. Escobar, is this your presentation or was anything else?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure that you have everything. So I think there's some questions from the panel. Public, any questions before we open it up to the panel? Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it. No.
No. Esther, you had a very valid question that I also like to have the answer to. So why don't you go ask it and we'll spare me talking about it.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that the June 10th was the date was.
January.
June, or excuse me, January. January 10th was that extended to January.
Yeah, second council meeting of January.
So which is 24th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you said the second
The second meeting of January.
So the city council meets twice a month. the second week and the fourth week.
The reason I wanted to ask this question is because on our timeline and on the Glendora site that people see, it says January.
We can update that.
Yeah, it actually still says it on our
And it says
on our package too. I noticed, which is really good. So, before any other questions, I wanted to share some thoughts with the panel on, you know, the SIRE funding, and I have no problem taking the lead, of course, reporting out.
Sure, we did it.
So I'm perfectly fine with that. And I've done several other boards and committees in the past, and I want to make sure that, and that's why I kept kind of saying, let's put our recommendations and what you're thinking, what you're verbalizing here. I want to put that on paper because I want to make sure that everybody has a voice, and as we prepare kind of the slides and you know, the presentation as a whole, I'd be happy to take that on, and I'll volunteer Esther to help me a little bit with that. And of course, Mr. Lopez can kind of keep us honest and making sure that we're, you know, obviously presenting what's expected by, or the format and the framework that the city council is expecting. But I would love to get some insights from you written down on an email, kind of around, in general, what your advice would be during this process, what you've learned. And it could be overarching, right? And what you recommend we either go with or not go with. I would love to understand of the people that you spoke to, kind of what their concerns were. Are they for or against forming the special district? If we have some numbers, if you could, I'd love to kind of give a percentage of like, hey, we decided 10% or 50%, and I just threw that number out earlier, but I don't know. And then essentially, what are neighbors looking to pay? Like, what is that number for the special light district? And I think that's one of the more important pieces. And then anything else that you want to share with me, please do, because what I like to do is kind of get all of that data put together so that everybody's voice is heard when we report out to the city. And it doesn't become like, if I write it like Patrick's thing, because that's not what I want. I want to obviously have my opinion in it, but I want to make sure that everybody has an opinion. If it's related to bid, if it's related to, you know, getting to your point, like getting different street done at different times, all of that needs to be in there that we can recommend that to the city and they can make that decision. So that is what I would love to see. And I don't know if there's anything else that the panel would like to add to that, or if you have any pushback or anything that you can do. From a timing perspective, I would say second week of January would be great if I can have it. So I'll have to look at the calendar, but like was that 9th or something in that area. That would be awesome. We have some time to put it all together, and then I have some time to make it all sound good, and then reach out to the city to make sure that I put it in right format. So is that fair as it relates to all the efforts that we put in and how I intend at least to report out? And if you don't, then that's fine too, but
it's just January 9th is Monday. That would be good.
Yeah, so if I have it by then.
Yes, I did start a draft.
Oh,
based on our last
that's what I was saying.
Yes.
But I like what you're saying, getting everybody's ideas and thoughts and, you know, putting it all together, you know, comprehensively, you know.
I'd like to propose a meeting of our own. I know the holidays, but
Stubborn mule, my time would get like.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'd like to facilitate this meeting, because I have an office across the street from Stubborn Mule, upstairs, across the corner cuts. I have enough room for us to sit down and hash things out and come up whiteboards and stuff, to throw ideas out. She's got great ideas, he's got great ideas. Let's throw all this shit on the wall and let's see what sticks and narrow it down to what we want to present the city. Because it sounds like they're gonna listen, they don't have to accept it, but what we come up with on our own, they're great for answers, but they can't participate in what we want, because it's our city, it's our street, it's our lights, we're the people talking to everybody. I think we need to get together on our own at some point. I know it's hard. I mean, I'm late to every meeting.
Well, you're consistent.
But my wife's sick, she couldn't make it, but I think if we can us come together and just brainstorm some ideas and figure out what this report's going to look like, what our recommendations are going to be. I think we have enough information, or we still have questions, and you guys are great for answers. I appreciate you being here, but It's up to us to make this happen, and
I'm good with that. If the majority of the panel wants to get together between now and call it January 9th, I do still want to kind of get all that data.
Get an email.
Start forming up, because
Yes.
I will have to spend some time.
we could kind of digest that maybe even if we meet together and
Or if somebody else wants to put it together, that's fine.
So you're the chairman.
So I think
You're the
Point out.
I mean, the consensus is, I think everybody wants to get it done.
Everybody wants to like,
And
how are we gonna do this?
His feedback and everything from a safety perspective, everybody wants to get it done. We gotta get over the hurdle of the cost.
Yes,
And who's gonna absorb the cost?
And property value.
And that's,
that's all part of it.
you know, and that's the biggest hurdle is the money thing. And then now the timing isn't great for not only building, but for everything. Because, you know, so people are so apprehensive of taking on too much extra cost, even though it's
Yeah.
really like,
Yeah.
I'll sign up for the 131 right now if the city pays a construction cost. I will veto my wife.
But I think that's, yeah.
But that's the biggest hurdle is the money aspect, because people can't get, because they have information.
Well,
that
we
we
have
have
to
to deal
do
with.
some more thoughts. So when we did this in 07, 08, we were not looking at the greatest economy either.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, but arguably, you know, the cost would have been a lot less than it is now. I mean, I don't think it's gonna ever go down. It's hard to say what's gonna happen in the future. It's never really a good time. I do think if we
I
wait
agree.
longer, it's gonna continue to increase, because when I looked at the construction costs in 05 and 08, it was like, oh my God, sign me up. I mean, it would have been basically what the grant
I mean,
covered.
18 years of no streetlights, and just from a safety
Yeah.
perspective,
Yep.
unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
unacceptable because we have them. I mean, they're there. So
They're
what
there.
do we do to turn them on? I
But
mean,
that's what I'm saying,
there's
it's unacceptable that we
Yeah.
don't have lights for safety purposes.
So.
I was just gonna say, to speak to what Jamie was asking, I agree, and I'm covered that. We talked about it in the last meeting,
yeah.
and Kathleen did send out everyone's phone numbers. Did everybody get that? I
think
just
so.
wanted to check, because we've been doing some emailing and including the staff as well, and so maybe we can pull that together internally.
So I think the consensus is we get together between now and January 9th. We will take that on as a panel to figure out the time, and thank you for offering. Is needed, so from you, so whatever. That's so.
Across the street.
So kidding aside, I think, I'm sorry.
Let's say, if I could add one more date to your discussion. We publish the agendas 1 week ahead of our target, so we anticipate publishing that agenda on the 17th of January. So it means we'll have a report sooner than that, so preferably that Friday before.
Which is.
Which would be 12, 14?
The Friday before, so that would be the 13th of
13th.
January.
So maybe we can shortly, I do need a little bit of time to pull it all together, between work and all that kind of fun stuff. So if I can get that weekend to start prepping that, so maybe we do it that first Friday, 9, 8, 6.
That would be the 6th.
If you can get it to me by then I have the weekend at least to start doing some, and then if I need to do some adjusting, and I would like to reach out to Mr. Lopez to kind of get it for review, so you kind of know what it is as well.
Sure, happy to provide.
And then I'm happy to get that 13.
Yeah,
Friday.
13, Friday the 13th.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying,
I don't leave the house on Thursday.
can we move it up a little bit, or move it down, or down?
I have a question. Could our recommendation to the board be to kick the can down the road 6 months?
The panel can recommend what it chooses to recommend. I think that there is, the desire initially from the city council was to move forward with this particular project. There's a very specific mission and charge for the panel. If the panel feels strongly that the timing is not right for the variety of reasons that we've discussed, then we can present that to the city council. Ultimately, they'll make the decision whether or not to pause it, move forward with it, or just, let it simmer for however long it may take.
I mean, I do agree with Patrick that the timing's never right, and I don't think there's going to be a significant drop in 6 months. But I don't know, there's something to consider for sure.
Well, in the way that I would view, and I've put these reports together in business as well as on other boards, is I report out on the consensus. certainly get some advice and then outline individual concerns. And then it's up to, in this case, the council to see where they would take that. So, I mean, if everybody said we're keeping it down 6 months, then that becomes a consensus. But if there's one or two and it's not the majority, then I list it as a concern or something to keep in mind. But again, I mean, it's the timing will never be right ever. That's just my concern. And I think if the city, I think we'll be surprised in how far the city would like to go. And I think they are pretty, they like the thought of the lights, it all needs to make sense and the citizens need to step up with it. But if we get proof out that that's the case, I do think that they'll be willing to work with us on costs and those type of things, even though that one bid is excessively high.
Yeah, just
In my opinion, again, nothing. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. Again, on how I would do it. Go ahead.
I'm trying to accept the bid.
Yeah.
60.
60 days. Yes.
From 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And
It doesn't preclude our ability to go back to the contract.
Yeah,
Negotiate it.
they can hold the bid if they choose to,
Yeah.
They can extend it.
Mr. Chairman, you have a question.
We keep talking about safety, right? Is there any studies or anything done in terms of neighborhood with lights, the amount of crime versus neighborhoods without lights, the amount of crime? Because I feel like listening to all this, it feels like, having made a strong enough case for why we need to have them turned on. Because it's like $400 may sound like a lot, right? Like truly helps make everything safer, and like you can show that with numbers and statistics. That's like a really strong compelling argument again to that. But I mean, sorry, I mean it's kind of a field perhaps, but
well, no, it goes to 2 public outreach efforts. So I do tend to agree with you. Just for a quick order, the way I look at this, and we can go into item number 3, it's the benefit you get for living in an area with lights. You get safety, beautification, and you get property value. And quite frankly, buying a house, it's all about location, location, location. You've heard it's true. And this lights add to the location. I mean, we're ready in the thoroughfare of the downtown. Having these lights on just adds to the additional home. So we all know. And I do, wasn't there a research that we saw from Pasadena where they turned on the lights? I mean, so there's some research there as well. I don't think about safety, but it was about property values.
yeah.
And I think all of that are items that we need to think about as we do the public outreach.
So just really quick, so the public outreach is what exactly? It's going to be a flyer that's going to go to everybody's house?
We'll talk about this. Yeah. All right. So let me pause that for a second. Anything else on item number 2? Otherwise, we'll go to number 3. Ian?
Are we still of one mind that we want to restore the lights rather than rip them all out and replace them all?
Yeah,
Refurbishment versus new.
Yeah.
which is the high end.
Yes,
You probably saw.
Yeah.
I personally am, but again, I think that's something that if you can put that in your email to me, what your feelings about that and part of the overarching, give my recommendation, that'll be good. And then I can add that to consensus. Esther, you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to on his comment and that, said $400 was for security, they're using that. But it made me think of the fact that there's certain security lights that people would buy at Home Depot. And how much would they pay on an annual basis, like the security monitoring that's happened in homes. I mean, there's a comparison there with dollar in terms of what people are willing to pay. I guess versus what you're asking, but it is a good speaking.
Yeah.
So let me pause then before we tag on to this, because I think that we go and lands into public outreach, just move the agenda along, guys, if that's okay. All right, so having said that, let's go ahead to item number 3, public outreach efforts. So in this case, Mr. Lopez, the word is yours.
Thank you. Just wanted to follow up with the panel. Remind you, I still have some signs that we have extra. We passed them out at the previous meeting. We have a stack of those one pagers, based on the latest revisions feedback that we received from all of you. I'll stand ready to provide whatever information and assistance that we can provide. Just the subtle reminder that we, at least on the staff side, can't engage on the advocacy portion of it. We can help you provide and prepare materials that are informational and educational, but if it moves beyond that, that would have to be on the panel.
But you can help us with a Maven campaign. A Maven campaign, potentially, right?
We can, so long as the materials that we provide are informational and
correct. Well,
I think
our pamphlet is motivation.
we cannot, things like we can't say
you
need to
should
vote,
or you have to.
vote,
I
or
got
here
it.
are the reasons you should vote, or here are the considerations why you should vote. It has to be very clear.
Got it. That's fair. So having said that, for public outreach, that's a conversation public, on either Zoom or here. Anything you want to share now, or maybe you want to wait? I'm happy to open it up a little bit more for you as well. But if not, like, let's have a conversation on the panel. Any thoughts on the public outreach? I, for one, would love to get a couple more signs, or I have one of yours.
What are your
Yard signs?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I did.
Please take one on your behalf. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes. Did you have any other comments now?
Well, it sounds like you're, I mean, you guys, first off, thank you guys so much for doing this. You guys clearly are on top of all this stuff. It's amazing. This is happening. And there's so much effort. It's very impressive hearing everything tonight. So I feel like anything I've been contributing, you guys have already thought of. But, you know, I don't know. It's like, seems like the letter that went out from that guy, he's like ahead of the game in terms of swaying public opinion. Now we got to time him out and get over top of that. Everyone has it in their head like, oh, I got to pay all this tax. You know, and it's like, how can we change that conversation? Like, do we have a pamphlet that goes out with all these points that you made? Point about coffee, like all these small points to get people thinking in terms of sense instead of a big chunk of a check that needs to go out. You know what I mean? Like, put 40 cents out a day, you know, it's like you're took a cup of coffee or whatever that is. Is there like, I don't even know how much it could, like the initial cost of it would be, but is there like a fundraising event that you do downtown to see your help support or something? Certain amount of that money goes towards turning these lights back on. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys have thought of some of stuff. But
We have,
Yeah.
we've kicked all that around, trying to figure out how to raise the money so we don't have to pay for it.
But the ultimate endpoint is that we have to establish the district and have to have the voters agree before there's any fundraiser or any type of funding.
Yeah.
That
Different stages in this battle.
That
The first stage
happens
is gets everyone to vote for the lighting assessment. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
The lighting assessment. That's stage one. After that, there's a ballot later on, months from now, that we're gonna pound the pavement and get everyone to vote yes. Yes, we will pay the extra money for the lights. But only the 305 homes or people in that lighting district. I said assessment district. In that lighting district get a vote. Only 305. This letter reads like the whole city is gonna get taxed and the whole city gets to vote for it.
That'd be really cool, by the way.
It would be.
For paid $10.
Yeah. But I don't know if we get 51% of the vote. But you probably get more than you think.
So I think that is well put. I mean, we're certainly right now just forming our advice to council. I do think we've done a little bit. We have some pamphlets, and I, for one, am happy to, even this weekend, maybe with some of my neighbors, help just go door to door.
Pretty sure you're not gonna do it on Christmas.
Somewhere between the
Sure about this.
Right.
Go get some eggnog.
So I get it. So let's not, okay, maybe not this weekend, but between now and the end of this year, I'm happy to go down to Little Ave and put a flyer in people's mailbox. That is, you walk down and off you go. You don't have to talk, you just kind of go. And I do think that's something we should do and could do. And I don't know if my fellow panelists would be joining me in that. But I think to your point, I mean, obviously we have to get the district forums, you know, if the city council takes the advice. And then there's gonna be a whole new area that we're gonna look at and how we're gonna get the information out, talk to everybody and do the flyer. And I think that's not even this panel, because we're just going up to here's the advice and then this panel is disbanded, as far as I understand. And then there could be something else that's formed to maybe, you know, move the media along or move that outreach along. And who knows, maybe some of us, all of us, none of us could be part of that. I don't know, but I think that's correct. And so we've thought about that and here's my 2 cents. Yeah, this guy threw out a couple of things. He's raising up some people. He's sending it out around Christmas. I think maybe some people were like, oh my God, this is happening, but he's pretty early in the game and maybe too early. Because by the time we're gonna come, you know, if all of it gets approved and we're gonna do our outreach, it's all the ball game, some of this might be forgotten. And there's no bad press. I'd love for people to kind of get rolled up and start looking for answers. And that's part of why for at least Glendora Avenue, I'd love to kind of get the pamphlet in there, go to the QR code. We have the whole FAQ sheet that all of us here put together and, you know, the city as well. So anyways, that's just, I just wanted to answer to that. That's the outreach with all of you here.
I wonder if this pamphlet that goes out, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm a visual artist, I'm an animation director, this is what I do. So I wonder if this pamphlet that goes out, and like this is nice, like these single pages of information, it's like a multi-page pamphlet, and there's nice visuals with homes, it increases property value. This is the study that we've seen in Pasadena, you know what I mean? It's like a nice visual with like safety, you know what I mean? And these are the points on safety, if there are any, because of things research I can show, so, you know, directly affects. So I don't know. First, it's just like a little letter. It's like,
That's one. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, again, I think when we get to the whole part of informing people that will vote and they will I think all of that is fair game. And maybe an opportunity as we form a new panel, community outreach, whatever we want to call it. Welcome your insights, but so.
Do we have your information? How to get a hold of you?
you have my number.
I think we just noted, Vivian has a noted down name and.
I have his name, I do not have your number.
Okay.
You're welcome to participate.
Yeah.
Do you know any of your neighbors and how do they feel about this?
So it's funny, a lot of my neighbors have actually moved out of the neighborhood recently. We have a really tight community where we're at, but the neighbors I know, like they want the lights turned back on. And but there's a lot of rental properties in that. And it's tough and they're annoyed because I guess this came up years ago. And it was all the property owners that have rental units, and they outvoice the people in the neighborhood. And so that's their view of it. Do they want it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, dollars to donuts when they see the actual numbers, will they still be excited about it? $400 a year does not scare me. I think it's worth it. You know, again, like $1 a day, you spend that easily on all kinds of jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the train coming in, I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm not nervous about it. Like, just these user trains to go for long walks at night with the college. And when the train came in, there was a different chemistry at night of people walking.
Yeah, we talked about that last meeting. Yeah.
It's gonna be very easy to get to us. So just in streets, you know what I mean? And like, it'd be nice to say, hey, folks coming in here, we take our neighborhood serious. The lights are on, we're paying attention, you know?
Yeah.
People are home.
So, I don't know, I think that, you know, but I do think that we gotta get the word out. Because I don't know that everybody will know that these letters come in the mail, I think sometimes they end up in the trash can. You know what I mean? So I don't know that everybody knows like exactly what's going on, and I know that's part of this panel, with that information.
It's a personal touch.
Yeah,
going to the person and saying, hey,
exactly right.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, exactly right.
You know, and then it's knowledge and perception.
I'd be happy to walk stuff up and down my street, you know. mean, like I
Sign up
said,
right
I
now.
wrote a
We have
letter.
to stack.
What street, I want to private, what street do you live?
Wabash.
I live in Wabash, just south of Foothill.
I live on Wabash, the other end.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go for a walk. Not knocking doors.
And then the other thing that's crazy is neighbors on Minnesota that I have, you know, neighbors that live with them, they want these lights.
Yeah.
Cause they.
Everybody in the
also
city
see
enjoys
As
it.
a safety thing for their own neighbors.
Even if you don't have the light in front of your house, everybody loves them when you're walking through the neighborhood. And they miss it.
Look
The
beautiful.
people that have been there long enough, they remember it.
Yeah, I
So,
haven't been there long enough to remember.
And you've never seen the lights on at night?
We moved in 7 years ago.
Yeah,
It was very nice.
it's like, I like it too, walking in Disneyland at night when no one's there. You ever been like the last one to leave Disneyland? When the street lights are on when you're walking up Main Street, it's just like that. It's beautiful. It's soft lights. They're every now and then and it's nice.
so did we capture that? Maybe that should be disclosed. He's just like Disneyland.
It's when you look.
We've got Nora. Trees and Disneyland like. So, and I appreciate your input. I think this is phenomenal. And thank you for speaking in. This is a very good one. So I think that's very informative, specifically to the public outreach effort as well. And I'm gonna take you up on your offer. There's a stack right there. I'd love for you to before that. I'm gonna do it myself. I mean, it's not this weekend, I people. And I hope I
think that you have other players. That's all.
And I hope our other panelists will be able to do that as well, because I do think we need to get a little bit more notice out at a certain night, kind of walk on the avenue, as I'm sure some of you have done. And it is in personal touch. We did reach out to shoot hands, and a lot of people didn't know what was about. As soon as we talked about it, like, oh my goodness, that's what it's about. Awesome. Also, I think that's where it might have failed the votes in 05 and 07, 08, mixing up the days there, because there was nobody knew what was going on. I just moved into the neighborhood in Monroe Avenue. I just got a bill and that's it, and I had no clue what else was going on. So I think we're already ahead of the game as it relates to the other times we provide this. And again, I think part of this, let's go do those flyers now. We have some signs that get them out. I'll take some that are getting the people that support us. Let's continue to talk it up from an outreach perspective, and then I think part of, maybe what I would then receive on January 6th, maybe some thoughts of what we can do to continue to outreach. Obviously, when this gets voted to move forward, how we put it there. Go ahead, Esther.
Would anyone want to just mail out the frequently asked questions? Mails grabbing information, or is that too long? Or do we want to try and mail something out now, since these 2 letters have been without and grabbing the attention? I think it's dark outside, they're home more and kind of hibernating more and just checking the mail, and this is what they have. And, just to put something in front, even though we have a frequently asked questions on the website, I don't know how many people are going directly there.
Right.
How much visibility they're getting as to having something more tangible in their hands where they can see it.
Let's get something else out there in the mailbox besides this.
With not having enough bids, what can we do? Our hands are tied.
Well, we have the power of recommending to the council.
If that's the reason why we don't reach out now,
Right.
then we're missing the boat.
I
wouldn't
we
wait
can't
for
get figures. We can't say it costs this much, it costs that much. We have no idea.
Yeah, but
I don't think the bid is necessarily wrong, and we're not gonna get
I don't know if you need the numbers right
less
now.
expensive bid.
I just have to drum up interest.
Yeah.
And let people know that it's happening, get them excited about it. We got this opportunity to turn these lights on. We're working on it really hard. We need your support. Come to our meetings, whatever it is. Like, if there could be some kind of an event where we could just collect everybody from these neighborhoods into like one space and speak to them all in one.
I think this, I don't think our narrative has changed. I mean, it's gonna cost you between $100 and $300.
No.
Maybe $300.
Some of these are 500 something.
I agree, but I mean, we're not locked and loaded with the bid yet, but.
Right.
If
We haven't accepted that bid yet.
Yeah.
So our recommendation could be, we need more bids. I mean.
Or a recommendation could be, city, we're anticipating you
to step up.
to step up, and pay for the excellence in the game.
But we're not quite at that point yet.
So I would not throw out the baby with the bathwater, I'm saying, because if we just pause now and not say anything, then it's gonna be tough.
I would pause, I would say we need to get more bids, period, or we say it needs to come in at this random number, 300 a year. And the city either get more bids or fork up all the money, so it costs no more than that.
So that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Between now and when we make the recommendation, that's just not gonna happen. That's a reality, especially with the vacation, unless someone is speaking out of this. No.
I mean, we can say get more bids or be willing to pay enough to make it 300.
Yeah.
That,
Or 130. I kind of like that number too.
I do like that number.
Yeah, let's say max.
But I don't want
Max
to get stuck
assessment.
on that. We're not signing up for anything. We're not signing up for this bid. We're just saying, here's what we think we should do, and then city can figure out where they want to pay them. As I kind of said, I think right now what I want to do is it might be a good time to get some of these pamphlets out or that FAQ sheet sent out to just show at least 305 residents or properties that are there that we're working on this. We're trying to do some things, and we want you to think with us and tell us what your thoughts are. Maybe everybody does want to pay $500. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to get stuck in that. I know it's an important deal. Don't get me wrong, Ian. I hear loud and clear, but I also don't want to get stuck in that particular point where we won't be reaching out. And I think we could still say, listen, we're formulating a recommendation. It is anywhere between, and if you want to say 100 and 500, what would you like to pay? I mean, that's still the same conversation that we really have and should have. Is that fair to say, Ian? Or I mean, you're looking at me like I
remember the last time this was up for a vote. I went to like all the different meetings. I remember what people said. I remember how angry they were. I would not feel comfortable with that almost $4 million figure on the table. I would not feel comfortable. I would not give it a hell's chance of passing. I don't think it's going to work. I don't know how much the city would be willing to pay. I know that there's mixed feelings on the council in general. I know there was vitriol from the council last time this was up, people being really nasty about how only immediate residents should have any skin in this game, how it was ridiculous that they wanted anyone else to pay anything. So I anticipate a lot of that energy coming back. It really is a bottom line kind of thing. And with just one bid, I don't feel good conscious about this at all. And especially since I don't think the right kind of contractors have even looked at this, have heard of it, have known about it. I'm not comfortable. I don't think it's going to work. And I've seen it go down 2-3 times already and not work.
I'm hearing two different things.
Okay.
Sorry. So you're saying that you don't feel comfortable with it. Are you, and then I heard Patrick saying that we're not gonna say yes to the bid at this time. And what we're trying to do is outreach. So are you saying that you don't want to put out any outreach efforts at this time because of the bid?
We don't have any concept of what it's going to cost, and that's people's main question. We don't have any. I mean, I guess we do. It's up to $580 or something, or 130 if the city's willing to pay every cent, which I really doubt. But it's really great to have that figure.
Would it be important to let people that and then have them give us their feedback? So that they can also say that they receive our recommendations as the public. Here's what we think about this process at this point. If we feel the same way you do in other words.
I mean, I think it might be airing dirty laundry with an already very kind of hostile environment. I mean, it was nasty. I remember even the city council meetings, it was nasty. Like council people, I mean, some of them are no longer on the council, but it was nasty. We have to be.
I will say this, when I moved into Conklin in 2007, when this was playing, none of the people that are sitting here were living there. As a matter of fact, that whole street turned. And I do think we all would be surprised on how much more support we can count on them for. I think it was without kind of going into like whatever that is. I think there is a energy with newer people. So I don't know, and I could be 100% wrong. Except for one person.
He was around, yes.
But, yeah, and he's apparently.
No, he owns a big property across from the park on Wabash.
Yeah, because he has to be back. But I'm saying, part of it is danger in shooting. The same will happen again. There's also a danger of underestimating it, and I agree with 100%. And I know from hearing you say, hey, listen, it's hard to have a number because that's what they're gonna have. I also do think that, and I'll go back, we still have at least a few away. So.
And if we had 3 bids and this was a number, I'd be like, okay, that's it. Like I can stand behind it, or at least, you know, one of them at least is a company that kind of does this kind of stuff regularly. I would feel very comfortable. I mean, I would still be concerned how high it is, but I would feel better about it. But right now I just feel like, okay, some random person that happened to be the only one who knew about it and bid, and sort of the implied message in that letter, and something we are going to have to deal with is this feeling that like, oh, well, who cares? It's just money. We don't care about how much it costs. Just go with it. And I think having only one bid and having it being so high doesn't do enough to prove him wrong.
So would it be something to the extent of, listen, we think it's going to be 100 or 300. We got one bid. We're not happy with it. We're recommending you to go.
We're not happy with that.
No, yeah.
Because this could be the only bid we ever get, and it could be the only opportunity.
Well, then we shouldn't invest it at all. We should say, if the city's going to pay the full amount, it's on.
We have Rick on Zoom that wants to comment. Rick.
Hi, how are you today, Stephen? This lab, and I would agree. You know, I mean, I remember these lights, 40 years ago. I mean, I grew up in the neighborhood back when my grandfather, owned the property. And, it's public safety is a big issue here on on Wabash Avenue, Glendora Gardens. There's individuals walking in the neighborhood from the train stations. I've seen recently how to call the police. But I would definitely agree with Ian and the rest of the panel members. We really need, even if it was Parsons Engineering, we really need another bid. Try to do everything can possible, because I have a lot of neighbors and I've talked to them, and they're very, motivated about getting these lights back on. There's a lot of elderly people on Wabash, and they walk at night with their flashlights, and other individuals that shouldn't be in the neighborhood. But I think it's really imperative we do get another bid. Try to do everything we can, at least to have a comparison, rather than just take the only bid that may look like nepotism or something else. And I don't want that perception, but I think we push back. We need to push back till we get another bid, to have that comparison and make a better argument with the individuals that are on the sidelines. That's what I had to say.
Well, I appreciate that input.
Did we establish that we can't tax the entire city?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
It's still
so what if we put all the lights all together? Because it's going to be 2 lighting districts, right? So the rest of the city's on one district light.
No,
No.
That's only the other parts of the city that have lights have a district.
We're not in it.
People who are getting the benefit of those.
So
lights.
Vermont behind me, they don't have lights.
So they have nothing.
They are in no district.
Okay, I got you.
So it's just if you have a light in front or not.
Can we just tax the entire city based on just and like preserving the make downtown Glendora and the historic route beautiful again? Participate.
They can pay out of that.
And we all pay $5.
They have to want to do.
Well, maybe that's
Just an idea.
part of it. I mean, that's what we can recommend, to say, we're gonna fundraise, we're gonna do a couple of different rounds, everybody in the city gets us $5. I mean.
What does that mean? Can I make a comment? It's been alluded to a couple of times. I just want to throw it out there, kind of set the record straight. Because we received one bid, does not mean that we did not follow the rules, that there was anything nefarious about it. I want to make that absolutely clear. We issued the bid like we do for all construction projects, like every other jurisdiction in California does, and expecting that the market will respond to it. If we go back out to bid, there's no guarantee we're going to get 2 bids. There's no guarantee we're
lower bid.
So I just want to make it very clear that the process was followed, it was public, it was a competitive process.
Was it done twice?
It was done
It was done
twice.
twice. This would be the third time going back out.
Because the first time never got any bid. right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, I know, but it's perception again. Oh, the only, it's just perception that you don't understand.
But one of the board members of the historical society, for instance, does historic stuff, has a contractor who is probably a good candidate for this, simply didn't have time to do it in,
Either time.
you know,
It's
so.
2 times before?
twice.
Didn't know about it at first. And then I said something about it, and I think there was like 2 or 3 weeks and we just can't do it. It's not holidays coming up. We can't do it. We can't do it. So that, you know, and I don't know how many other companies are there, but I at this point feel like it would be really good to make sure this is on some people's radar. I mean, people are not hungry for work like they were, you know, in the last recession or something. I don't know if they're scouring every single city's website and expecting to see something like this. I don't think this is an everyday kind of thing. I don't think, I mean, and I know like it's not your job to publicize, but I think maybe we or whoever is gonna, you know, citizen wise try to push this stuff needs to really publicize this a lot more and make sure the right kind of companies are bidding on this in the first place.
So when you say right kind of companies, this was a licensed contractor that does do street lighting, so they are the right kind of.
But
There's more than
stuff,
one.
historic stuff.
They
Yeah, I
have a
mean,
subcontractor that restores street lights.
okay,
And
okay.
a subcontractor that does electricity, and then a subcontractor that does asphalt, a subcontractor that does cement curbs, and a subcontractor that does trenching. So he's putting 20% on 6, 8 different subcontractors.
Do we know that, are we allowed to know the name of this person?
Break it out.
This company?
Yeah, of course, public record.
all right, so I'm gonna bring this back because I think we're going into this.
The black hole.
You wanna get the name right now or?
Yeah,
or, you know?
PTM, General Engineering Services.
ETM,
PTM,
PTM, General.
General Engineering Service.
So let's establish the fact that the city followed the rules, and I think that's.
Yeah, I never doubted that. I didn't think you could find that.
No, but I think that was mentioned, I think.
Yeah.
That might be the problem, if the city follows the rule. Maybe they need to think it on the box.
For the most part, sometimes we need to follow, but I think we've established the fact that obviously, let's say the city followed all rules, I mean, and that's pretty clear. The panel would like to see more bids and is wondering if everybody's seen it or all that. I don't know if there's a guarantee we'll get 2 bids, 3 bids, no bids, higher bids, who knows? You know, I think that's in our recommendation. I want to leave it there because I don't think it'll get solved here, and I kind of let the conversation kind of flow. I do want to bring it back to outreach. Aside from the number, if you do or don't want to participate, I do recommend getting some flyers today and advising our fellow neighbors that we are working on this. I mean, and the conversation again, it hasn't changed, so it's going to be a price tag to that. It could be $100, 132, it could be 448. I mean, let's be transparent and open then, and let's go for there. I do want to understand if we are comfortable with a little bit of outreach between now and we give, you know, the council our final recommendation. And I'll do my best. I promise that to the panel here to make sure that these concerns are voiced because they're fair. Yeah, but that's all I can do. And I don't think we have an answer today. We could have an answer today. We can probably talk for a while and still like get an answer, but I do want to move forward. And I think all of us do want to move forward. And so let's put that in a recommendation, and maybe even when we meet as an individual group to talk about kind of whiteboarding and all that, maybe that's something else we can kind of show right now that for the conversation. Is that fair to say then? Ian, are you good with that too?
Yeah.
I do want to.
I would actually like to shift to talking about, I know there's been some talk about fundraising and stuff like that. Of course, without, you know, any specific goal in mind.
Before you go there, I want to recognize our colleague. I know you had your hand up. Did you have anything else to add to the conversation?
I want to bring it back to them because we talking everything has one bid, but that's not exactly true. They offered it to lots of people, it's just the only one in there.
Correct.
So I think it doesn't sound nefarious at all. It just sounds like market looks. You know what I mean? That's all. I just want to really we just want to say that.
Sorry, I raised the hand up and I said, wait, so I don't want to. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a good addition.
Oh, so Jess, you know, I know that fundraising has been mentioned. Last time when Barrett was here, there was something the Historical Society. service the nonprofit and somehow funnel that through. They seem open to that. I'm also just wondering how much we could raise, and then I'm even coming up with questions, and maybe staff can answer this, but you know, can we put plaques on these lights for $10,000, or is that even worth it? Is that even allowed because it's a public good? Can something like that even happen?
You know, that's a great question. I had not contemplated that.
Yeah.
No, we talked about that, like in memory of.
Yeah.
Like, grandma and grandpa's down.
Is that even allowed?
We do have a naming policy for city facilities, so I'd have to consult that. I don't have that.
Okay. So we'll put it as a maybe.
Possibly.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say no, because I don't know.
Yeah.
If you put the plaque in the concrete, like, it'd be
On the base.
Probably have to report a base anyways.
Yeah.
That could be even better.
Okay.
I remember, just to add to that, remember we did the fundraising for the Star that's on again, that, you know, they turned off, and then everybody kind of came together and
Yeah.
donated, and I don't know how much it was. It was quite a, I mean, not millions, but it was quite expensive. What pulled it up?
The Star.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there was a whole website of the movement, and they kind of, I think, fundraising.
The Star that's on right now?
The Star that's on right now. You pay for that?
I did not.
I probably did know about it. That's okay, because I love that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's because it was off for a while and the property was being sold and it was in disrepair. I remember it well because we always enjoyed it too. And it's kind of that same feeling of it's a little bit of Glendora, it's a little bit of history, and it makes all of our life just that little bit more happy and happier. Or that's something to go with it. And I think that's the same with Streetlights. So I think to the fundraising point, I think it'll be a really good opportunity if we need to make up some grounds. So I made some notes here too that we'll include. Okay. All right. So let's unless there's anything else on this that is I don't want to discuss, I'd like to.
Rick, did you raise your hand again? I'm sorry. Rick, did you want to say something?
I can't say
no, I appreciate it. No, I did not. I appreciate all the discussions and all the valuable information. And I think we're going in the right direction. And I think additional outreach is important. Besides, you know, and after receiving that letter, which I've seen it, I saw it back in 2008 from the same individual and caused a lot of confusion. So I think public outreach is really important at this point.
Comments, and I think the panel overall is willing to drop off the flyer. Right, at least drop off the flyer. Okay.
Just one thing, what was your name? Mike. I agree with what Mike said. At this stage of the game, it's just publicizing and getting the 305 homeowners to say, yeah, I want the lights on. Just stop right there for now. And then go, okay.
I think the sticker price later.
Yeah, let's talk about the price later. When we get a price, we don't even really have a price yet. We have one ridiculous price.
That was the only.
For now it is, so we might be able to request more. I don't know. I like the party.
Everybody likes party.
Yeah.
I like 3 actually. Esther, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
Are there other additional outreach efforts? The idea of the 10,000.
Yeah.
But if we have fundraised a lot of projects.
Yeah, we
Bring it back to
Stage
the current
4 or
and
3.
only option right
I
now.
was going to ask about that because on the frequently asked questions on the site, it says, it does say fundraising is option. The ability to do that, but it has to be guaranteed. What does that mean?
we typically don't issue bids until we have the money in hand. So if there was a fundraising effort, we would not we would not pursue a bid until we had enough money in hand to be able to pay for it. So you basically have to have the money up front.
Fundraise first.
Can I ask a question with that? So, but can't the fundraising be happening during, like, to supplement it?
If we don't, not to be a broken record, but if we don't establish a district that's of homeowners that's going to pay the ongoing maintenance and operation of these lights, there's nothing to fundraise for at this point.
That's correct.
Because the light project will not be done without the homeowners voting in favor of paying that ongoing maintenance. Now, the fundraising could offset the cost that we're going to pay, but if we don't establish the district and agree to pay those costs, then there's no project to fundraise for.
Right, that makes sense.
Yes, the fundraising is only for the capital portion.
Right, I think that would be well. All right, with that said, I will go ahead and go on to the next few items here on the agenda. Which is the 7th November 10th, 2022 minutes. So any Zoom participants or any panel participants have any concerns on what's in the minutes that would allow us not to approve these minutes to move forward? And I need a motion and a second. And the chair can motion.
I'm going to approve the minutes.
I second.
All right. Minutes are approved, moved and seconded. And we'll move on to item number 5. Which is the updated future meetings and benefit discussion items. Again, Mr. Lopez will refer to you here, since you might have some thoughts there related to the dates, but I think we've already somewhat covered all of this. So yeah, but I'll bring it back to you just to kind of close that part out.
Only to state that if it is the panel's desire to meet one more time, that window of time, we're happy to accommodate, provide whatever support that we need.
We'd like to meet this weekend. We got to have a couple of minutes. Sorry about that. On a serious note, as a panel, do we want to have an additional meeting with the city? I know we've pretty much agreed on a meeting with just us anywhere between now and call it the end of the year, but is there another meeting that we feel necessary given the timeline of our advice going into the city and then presenting it in front of council?
I would say, I don't think it's necessary. That's my opinion. We've covered a lot in the last
I think you can second that. Yeah. If we have questions, we can email them. They'll answer.
That's how I would tend to agree. I think, you know, just on my personal note, I think the city for all the time and effort you put into this as well. And
yes,
for the panel, all the questions and being very kind to us because we had many, and then some more questions and we still have the questions. But I appreciate you guys all being kind to that. I know that's not easy. I know this is like 7:15 and you will spend a couple hours with your family already. I mean, so could we, but I know from a city perspective, you have to be here. More or less we volunteered, right? Or voluntold, whatever you want to look at it. But I appreciate it. Kidding aside, thank you for all of that and what you've done, and I truly appreciate it. And again, if there's any other questions that the panel comes up or that we come up with when we do a little bit of brainstorming, whiteboarding, we'll go ahead and start with it. So I appreciate that.
I'll also add that if you need more handouts or signs, please let us know. We can get those ordered.
Perfect. Noted as well. All right. With that said, I'm stressing. Okay, that's what says me. Okay.
At least probably.
Thanks.
We have about 150 right there.
Thanks.
We also put this in our card stock too, so if you put in some of the what's handled better.
Well, let me just end this with saying happy holidays, everyone here. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And with that, I would like to adjourn our meeting at 7:16. Thank you all.
thank you. What I did?
The plaque idea.
Yeah. Right in the base. Yeah.
You know what?
You asked for my numbers?
You want to go back? Yeah.